I've always had somewhat of a love-hate relationship with Far Cry. It's easy to bash on the game because it plays it safe 9 times out of 10. The story, the villains, everything is usually incredibly transparent for the moment-to-moment action. And while it does visually try to push the boundaries in incredibly small directions, it typically doesn't always succeed at jaw-dropping, blow your mind next gen type experiences. Now, Far Cry is not an annual franchise either, so there is time for Ubisoft to really invest in this engine, the Dunya engine, and to really push this game to its limits. And they don't always succeed at that. That's the hate part of this relationship. But the love part of this relationship is honestly everything else. And I have been playing Far Cry 6 this weekend, both single player and co-op. And I've got to say, it's a fascinating, phenomenal game. I don't think, as many other people have probably come to the realization, and for those who haven't, I don't think I'm ever going to actually beat this game, at least 100% platinum complete it, check every item off the map, because the amount of things to do in this game is overwhelming. Easily overwhelming. I've seen reviewers say that they have logged 60 plus hours into this experience and they're only 30% through the main story. I totally believe that. I spent 2 hours today driving up and down the coast on a jet ski looking for one glyph of a piece of treasure. And I finally found it. It took me 2 hours to figure this little puzzle out. There are many of these puzzles in the world. There is a lot of activities in this world. So I'll try to break it down simply in a couple perspectives here. I'm going to talk about the gameplay, the graphics, the sound design, and then I want to leave with cooperative because that's the mode that really left the biggest impression in my head. The story is exactly what you think it's going to be. Evil villain who is a tyrant of essentially Cuba, right? But it's not Cuba in this game. It's Yara, fictional country. Has been oppressed for many years and has a way to refine these special tobacco plants to make them some sort of cancer-curing medicine that's a miracle to the world. In order to keep that control, the evil dictator of this place is holding down and forcing people into basically slave labor to militarize the forces so that he can get more money, sell this faster, become more powerful, blah, blah, blah. You play as a rebel. In this case, they love the word guerrilla, but pronounced in the native Spanish language is guerrilla. And you'll hear guerrilla just about every other sentence from every other character because they love using this word. And you're going to basically go out and unionize other guerrillas and overthrow this evil dictator. Along the way, you're going to make a lot of friends and a lot of enemies and blow up a lot of things and have a lot of fun. These are all Far Cry staples. You're going to get crazy weapons. You're going to get crazy, all this sort of stuff. If you've played any Far Cry game before, you know that this game has a slew of customizations. Some of the new things that they have added now on top of everything else you could remember in terms of weapon skins and reticles and different types of ammunition, different attachments, scopes, weapon charms. The new thing they have added, kind of the hot item, is the Supremo, which is exactly like the ultimate from Destiny, or any other game where you build up a meter and you unleash a devastating attack. Supremo is this giant thing that sits on your back. By default, it shoots rockets. Later on, you can modify it to shoot poison and fire and all these different attachments. But as you kill more things, you are rewarded with the ability to go ham with the Supremo and take out helicopters or tanks or just large groups of people. It's a lot of fun, and it does change up the kind of stale experience of a full frontal assault on a base when all you have is a grenade and a couple of different types of weapons. Obviously, you have your follower, who's going to be there to give you a hand. There's quite a few this time. I think everybody loves Chorizo, which is the little dog who's unfortunately in a wheelchair, but the wheelchair is mounted with weapons. So fear not, he will help you out. So that's the litany of the gameplay, and it is very similar to stuff that existed before. Other notable things, as I mentioned, there's treasure hunts. There is, and treasure hunts in multiple ways too, not just like go here, X marks the spot, pick up the item here, but go explore this cave. And there's no real clear indication as to what's inside the cave or how to navigate it. I mentioned the cryptograph puzzles that I encountered before. You will sometimes find notes or receive clues as to where things may be in the map by other people, and that you kind of have to go do a little bit of exploring. There's weapon caches that drop in from the air that are heavily guarded that you can pick up. You can take out convoys, free prisoners. You name it, this game has it. And a lot of these things are not new, but they really pack in the content in this game. Graphically, it looks okay. I'd say it's like a PlayStation 4 Pro type plus game with a few key enhancements, most notably in the ray tracing from the sunlight, and most notably in some of the reflection maps on PS5. It runs at 60 frames a second. It's a variable refresh rate. There's still a lot of stuff in there that could be better, but ultimately I think it does a good job. It doesn't push the envelope on the PlayStation really in any respect that makes you say, oh my God, like this is the best game I've ever seen. You will find moments of the game that look drop dead gorgeous. Then you will see some reused art animation from Far Cry 3 or Far Cry 4, and you're like, ooh, this really looks out of place. The roads, perfect example. The roads are not textured at all, and they look very 2D and flat. They look out of place. Thankfully, you're not on the road very much, so it doesn't matter. Other times you'll look up at the sky or see a wave crashing over a rock, and it's some of the most beautiful graphics you've ever seen, and you're like, okay, this is Sea of Thieves level next generation water mapping. It varies, but it's serviceable, and thankfully it hits that 60 frames a second experience, which is very welcome. Sound design. Sound design is actually something that I'm incredibly impressed with. As you guys know, I use an external DAC, the Shithell 2. I use a pair of Sennheiser 650s that are pretty beefy. It's definitely overkill for this game, but as you guys know, I love really good sound design. And I am very glad that I invested so much in some high quality audio equipment, because this game is absolutely stunning in some of the sound effects and in the way the sound design works. A lot of times, obviously, when you're driving in a car, you're going to get to listen to music. That's nothing extravagant there. But they've added so many different sound effects, whether you're walking or driving on dirt or sand or grass. The way your gun reloads, the way you hear metallic clicking, or the way a handgun reverberates through a valley as opposed to a sniper rifle on the beach, the way the flames whip and crack from flamethrowers, explosions in the distance, the reverb and the reflection off of sound. It's fascinating. As with other games, I do not think the 3D audio benefits this at all. If you're playing on the PlayStation 5, I don't think you want it on. I think it makes the sound muffled. I think the game on its own naturally does a phenomenal job of sound design. I think it really does play a good part of the game, and I think that you're going to fall in love with the sound just as much as I did, and I think you're going to just be really impressed by what you hear. And I'm honestly shocked, because I think back to some of the other Ubisoft games, most notably Assassin's Creed Valhalla that just came out, and how weak that sound design is compared to this game. I don't know what the difference in the sound engine was, but it's night and day, radically different on Far Cry 6. It's got a very punchy sound to it when it needs to. Check out the 50 caliber on the back of your car. Check out when you're flying a helicopter and dropping something, like when you're shooting missiles or rockets at a distance. You'll hear it, and if you have a good enough sound system, you'll feel it too. So A+ on the sound design. I guess I'll go ahead and throw in here, at least unique to the PlayStation 5, the Dualsense controller works meticulously well. It blows my mind how meticulous they put detail into when you're driving. Perfect example today, as I mentioned earlier, I was driving around up and down the coast on a jet ski looking for a cryptograph. The way, when you're driving on a jet ski, or if you've been in a boat, you know that every so often you hit a hard wave and the whole boat kind of jostles. But that is not rhythmic. In other words, sometimes you'll get hit by 3 or 4 waves. Sometimes you won't get hit by any waves for a long time. the way they mapped that feeling of driving up and down a jet ski, bouncing up and down waves, to the graphics that I was seeing on the screen was awesome. And the Dualsense did such a good job of letting me feel waves, not only hitting them head on, not only the small ones that gave me some light chop, but also ones that I hit at an angle. So I'd feel a big push in my right hand and then it'd trickle through to my left hand and then fade out. If like I hit a wave at like a 45-degree angle. It was really fascinating. With driving a vehicle, it's got a light rumble to it. When you hit a tree, obviously, it's going to hit a little bit harder. It vibrates a little less on the road, a little more on gravel, significantly more on the beach, especially where you don't have a lot of good traction. Horses, the way you feel horses gallop, you feel every little hoof and every little feeling there, climbing rocks, shooting guns, reloading. This is a showcase game for the Dualsense in haptic feedback. I know I say this about a lot of games. I know I talked a lot about Returnal and how great Returnal was, but this, I think, is on par with that, if not better, for how phenomenal haptic feedback is. And when used properly with the Dualsense controller, what a fascinating experience that you're going to get. So I love it for that. Lastly, the cooperative. This is the one that I'm a little frustrated with. This game does offer cooperative support, but if you are not the host player, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. So the host player gets to play the game as normal. All the progression that they get, unlocking chests, are removed from the map. Doing a story mission gives them the proper amount of rewards and advances the said story in a good direction, so you don't have to redo missions. You can freely go wherever you want. If you're a tag-along, you can't go more than 300 meters away from the host, or the game will teleport you to them. You cannot always call in vehicles unless the host doesn't have one currently available. If they do, your option to call in a vehicle has been grayed out. When you find weapon caches in the game, while you do get to keep the contents of the weapon, when you go back to your private instance, the caches have not been removed. So if you're a completionist or you're looking around for a particular weapon, when you go back to said cache, you can still open it in your game. It'll just give you money instead. And lastly, and by far the biggest crime, progression is not saved. So if you did the first 5 story missions with a buddy as a cooperative player, and then you fire up your game later, you will be treated to the exact same 5 missions again. So you are really a second-class citizen throughout the entire experience. While it is fun to have mayhem and play with others, and one person's flying and one person's shooting, or you're invading a base from 2 different fronts simultaneously, you have double followers, double weapons, it's a lot more chaotic and fun. Those moments are absolutely glorious. Most people are playing the game to get some sort of progression. Yes, you will get experience. Yes, you will get money. Yes, you will get weapons. But if you want to try to track that progression in any meaningful way, good luck, it's not going to happen. And if you're somebody who wants to play with a friend and enjoy the story or understand what's going on, you're going to have to do everything on your own again. So I don't understand why there couldn't have been joint progress in certain objectives, why certain missions are treated that way, but they are. So beware of that. I got this game primarily to play cooperative, but honestly, I'm very sour to the experience. It is fun as long as I think everybody understands that, like, well, let's just go around and be dorks on some part of the map we don't care about, because when you get to the area you do care about and the missions you're currently invested in and trying to understand, you will not get to see that as a cooperative player. This is a very odd design, considering that it has been very heavily advertised as drop in, drop out, co-op. And I think back to other games that I played almost entirely cooperatively from Ubisoft, Ghost Recon, Wildlands, perfect example. I played that entire game cooperatively with 3 other players. And in the event one of us couldn't make it, the other ones advanced, and you didn't lose progress. Whoever was the host, it didn't matter. We all jumped into a game and played together. On this game, the host is the best. And if you're not the host, you just beware. All in all, I would say Far Cry is a masterpiece. It is a very, very addicting game. You know what you're getting into when you play it. As I mentioned, there aren't a lot of thrills and chills. While you do get some fun stuff here with some graphics, definitely with the haptic feedback, definitely with the 3D audio, ultimately, the gameplay experience is largely the same as others. But that said, I think it's still a lot of fun. and I can't wait to play more of it. So that's my thoughts on Far Cry 6. I'll do another video later on in this game if the need warrants. I don't really know there's going to be much to talk about in the story if I ever do beat it. I think this might be a game you just have fun with in the sandbox and then kind of move on. But for now, in between games like Battlefield and Halo, it is a very refined, polished shooter. It plays well. You do get rewarded handsomely for doing crazy things, and you're always going to find something to keep you entertained. I hope you guys found this review informative. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.